by donating to them.
Assalamualaikum and welcome back to Islam Channel, and I'm Maz Patel presenting you a special on this outrageous breaking story of a child who is unable to go to school because he wants to wear a badge in solidarity with his family in Gaza. And joining me to debate in this second part of our show is Hamid Mahmud, who is a founder and head teacher of Fatima Elizabeth Frontistery. I hope I've got that right. Yes, I think he's smiling, so I probably have. And also with me is Irfan Akhtar from the Waltham Forest Council of Mosques. Thank you, Irfan, for joining me again.
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum. Irfan, I'll start off with you. You were there at the protest, or some members of your group, I think, were there at the protest. A lot of your constituents, Muslims in your borough who you represent, were absolutely outraged that a Palestinian Muslim child, or any child for that matter, wearing a Palestinian symbol, which is, I think, a badge or something on his toy. I'm not exactly sure which one it was, but in any case, was unable and is still unable to go into school because they find that political. What's your reaction to that?
I mean, the reaction that people have given is absolutely understandable. A child it was a badge on his jacket, on his arm, showing solidarity. He's Palestinian by descent, so he's showing solidarity, obviously, for his own country and countrymen and his cousins out there. So the reaction is, justifiable. The school have played it very badly. They should have had communication set up earlier. They should have been reasonable in their discussion, compassionate and empathetic. Naturally, the double standard stands out obviously much, much more because only last year, Ukraine, they sent a letter out to all parents and carers on Ukraine, showing sympathy, showing empathy. And it was a stark contrast. Now they're trying to hide behind the word that they're apolitical, which is obviously a total farce. And so it shows there's an insidious agenda behind this, something which is more at play because this child was taken out of playtime. Various steps were taken to target this child. And it's been a month now. So these hit the headlines now more recently because the school have not done the right thing by the child, by education standards, and by their own policies. So because of that, it's getting to this stage now. And still, the reaction from the public has been peaceful, has been demanding the rights, the rights of education. So the response, even though it's at one of outrage, has been very measured and very responsible and respectful, as we always have in the pro-Palestinian camp.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I want to bring in my other guest, Hamid Mahmud, who is the founder and head teacher of Fatima Elizabeth Frontistery. Sorry if I've mispronounced it, but in any case, the serious point, Hamid, is that a child is unable to go to school wearing any symbolism of solidarity with his family who are suffering in Gaza. Does that sound right to you? I mean, you're the head teacher. Tell us and educate us in terms of what a school should or perhaps should not be doing.
Absolutely. So it's very unfortunate. It's disgusting to some extent.
Yeah.
Because education is there to free our minds. Education is there to teach us about what we can and how to express. And this child, he's Palestinian, and it was just a badge that's a badge of the flag. He didn't have any slogan, just a badge of the flag on his coat. And he's gone in to express his solidarity. And remember, he is a child whose relatives have been killed in this conflict. He has been speaking to many of his other relatives over FaceTime.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the devastation this 8-year-old is going through? Mentally, emotionally.
But his father said he's traumatized. His father says, my child is traumatized.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Especially if you have a child whose any relative passes away, for even in normal circumstances, they'd be traumatized.
Yeah.
And one of the safeguarding things when it comes to schools is the children's mental and emotional well-being. that clearly went out of the window with Berkeley School. And yeah, Ofsted has given them a outstanding previously. This is where we need to question. We need to, we need to question the epistemology of education. So,
Yeah.
what is the purpose of education? Why are we sending our children to school? And clearly, them being able to express their ideas, their emotions, is one of it is the duty upon the SLT, the head teacher of the school, and anyone responsible for managing the school
Yeah.
to ensure every single child's mental and emotional well-being is taken care of. And that has clearly not happened with this one Palestinian student at Berkeley School. And it's not just one child. There are so many children, so many students who also come to our weekend supplementary school,
Yeah.
who also attend Berkeley School. They have had the same complaints, that their badges have been taken off, they've been isolated. Some of them have even said that they've been taken aside, and they've overhearing SLT, about 7-8 members of them, speaking about their whole situation in the office, and then coming out. Imagine what that means for an 8-year-old. Imagine what that child is going through.
Absolutely, and I'm going to come back to you. My next question again to Irfan is, this was a policy that was initiated in 2003 by the then Labour government. And if you remember, all the way back then, there was a war that took place or was taking place in Iraq. And ostensibly, many critics said this is a means of trying to control dissent from within the Muslim community, not for controlling or countering extremism. It may have become that or developed into that later on, because obviously it's had a number of iterations. But this policy has been attacked by critics who say it's no longer fit for purpose and it needs to be scrapped. What do you say about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It needs to be scrapped. You might remember many years ago, the Waltham Forest Council Mosque issued a statement. It became big news. It went national because we said it's a racist policy, and it should be boycotted. And we said we will not engage. All the member mosques that we have under, and the people that we represent said we will not engage with this policy because it has behind it, it's trying to it singles out Muslims. The narrative is damaging to the trust that we need to have with educators and our elected representatives. So because it doesn't give us that level playing field, that natural platform, we will deal with any criminal elements we will deal with. We've always been peace of law-abiding citizens.
Yes.
We would work with the police on criminal elements all the time. But this policy, because it targeted children, and initially, as you may remember also, the rollout of this policy was so bad initially because educators who didn't know much about Islam were using things like a child growing a beard, a 16-year-old, becoming more religious. Those were signs of extremism, and even it was ridiculous. In Tower Hamlets, they had part of their warning signs was a child becoming more studious. Actually, paying more attention to their studies was a sign of extremism, this is an ideal position for teachers. They should expect their children to be more studious.
I really shudder, Irfan, on this. Back to you, Hamid. As a head teacher, what would you say to Justin James, who's the head teacher of this school? Now, I've been advised that the actual pupil here, that the 8-year-old child, he's not even a student. He's he's an infant. That child wasn't prevented from going into school if he took off his Palestinian badge. That's what the schools say. So he's free to come in as long as he takes it off his coat. Now, this coat, when you go into school, you don't wear the coat. A child doesn't wear the coat all day. But the fact that he has the temerity to wear that from the school gate into the school premises is the problem for this head teacher. What's your message to him?
So my message directly to Justin James is a reflection of what St. Augustine once said, that an unjust law is no law at all. And in this case, an unjust policy is no policy at all. And I also want to quote Paulo Freire from South America, who talks about the epistemology of education. He says that there is no such thing as a neutral educational process. Education either functions as an instrument that is used to facilitate the integration of the younger generation into the logic of the present system and bring about conformity to it, or it becomes the practice of freedom. That means by which men and women deal critically and creatively with reality and discover how to participate in the transformation of their world. So we've got to understand and think about, and my message to him is, what is education to you? Okay, if a coat with a Palestinian flag is bothering your school, whereas someone wearing a Ukrainian flag, the school having a Ukrainian flag up last year, children wearing Ukrainian badges, fundraising for Ukraine, and going beyond that, students perfectly fine wearing badges representing LGBTQ community, which is fine, and also, having pronouns of he, they, them, she, which is absolutely fine. What is the problem when it comes to Palestine, and especially when there is a genocide taking place, over 20,000 innocents killed and many more injured, and it hasn't stopped, it's ongoing. If our education doesn't teach us how to speak out the right time, then we're definitely not on the right side of history, and education is definitely something that has a part to play in this.
Okay, back to you, Irfan. Today I was sent a message saying this was a Labour Party policy initiated in 2003. That party is simply riddled with Islamophobia. It cares not for Muslims, but it cares for electoral votes. It uses Muslims for a vote block. In 2024, next year is expected to be election year, and Muslims should not be supporting Labour. What do you say to people who feel like that? I mean, is there any justification for feeling like that? Do those points make sense, or is that a bit too black and white?
No, people will be voting with their, a much more informed decision now, because Muslim vote has been a block vote for Labour for too long.
Yes.
And because of that, since the 80s, since Thatcher destroyed the unions, a lot of our Muslim people who came over, immigrants, were working in the labor force. So naturally, they had that affiliation with Labour and against Thatcher's, attack on the union. So since then, they haven't got out of it. But our people now, especially the young, are much more politically savvy. They're going to see where they vote, how they vote matters, and they're going to use it wisely. We've said before, and there's been many initiatives, by the way, across the country now we're seeing about focusing on the Muslim vote and on how to use it strategically. And it needs to be by region. We need to look at who are the best candidates in each region, whether they're independent or whether they're the Green Party or any other party. Again, the local demographics are going to know how it works, how the mathematics stack up, and how they're going to put pressure on. But at least one thing is clear: no politician, especially Labour, can take the Muslim vote for granted anymore.
And Hamid, over to you. Obviously, you're a head teacher, you're a professional, you run an institute which nourishes and looks after children and their education. How damaging have initiatives like this been for young Muslim children over the last 20 years? Let's be clear, this has been going on for 20 years now.
Absolutely. So many cases have come to me from my own students about what's been happening to them, and hearing their stories. It's been very saddening. Without mentioning names and not giving too much specifics, there was a child at my madrasa. This is a while back. It's going back about 8 years. He came to me and he mentioned how some of his friends were bullying him, and they were bullying him for his religious identity. And he came to me and said that, I've had enough, and teachers are not going to do anything. I cannot trust them. I've been told that if I say something or respond in any way possible, I will face the backlash. And I had to step in and say, look, before you lash out and before you respond in any way possible, what would happen is, and this is what I spoke to his parents about, that a lot of times the teachers and the head teachers, the SLT, will not see what the children were doing to him. They will just focus directly on his lashing out, and then start giving his name over, unfortunately, to prevent. So this is just one incident where we had to step in and try and do something about that. Children should not be feeling that they cannot approach their teachers. They should not be in a position or in a situation where they can't approach their head teacher. Schools' policies in regards to bullying and discrimination should be very, very clear, very transparent, and every child needs to feel safe. And most importantly, children of Muslim backgrounds who have been discriminated, especially since 9/11, it's going back all the way then. And if a child is feeling like that, it's a shame for those schools. And when we do lessons on, for example, say I'm a school teacher as well.
Yes.
And many times when we ask them to share their feelings in letters, most of the Muslim children who write those small letters about their feelings of being Muslim in the society that they're in, it's very, very disheartening to see that they do not feel comfortable because of how Muslims are being treated, because of how Muslims are being labeled, and it's impacting our children. And we need to, therefore, the local madrasas everywhere need to also educate them, on how to deal with these situations. Because, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he has given us a holistic way that Islam is not just a spiritual way of life. No, it is a intellectual way of life. There's physical element, there's spiritual, there's the mental. And our madrasas should not just be teaching them how to recite the Quran in Arabic. We need to be able to implement the message of the Quran, which is to speak out, to be confident as Muslims. Prophet ﷺ has clearly stated that the greatest jihad is to speak out in the face of a tyrant, to speak out the word of truth in the face of a tyrant. And this is what we need to teach our children, give that confidence boost to them, inshallah.
Irfan, Hamid says that we need to teach our children. He's put it very eloquently, actually, and backed it up with Islamic theology as well, quoting the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. How is that going to take place? Irfan, you are the spokesperson for Waltham Forest Council of Mosques. This has happened in your patch. What are you telling your constituents to do? How active do they need to be? Where are they going to pick this up from? Is it through the madrasas? Is it through your organisation? Is it through attending protest rallies? And remember, you're being watched by people across the country and across the world, actually. So your message is going to go far and wide.
The message is absolutely true that Islam is holistic. So political process, civic duties are also part of Islam. We do have, Ustad Hamid is an amazing setup, and I've sent my children to his madrasa as well, because they teach a holistic review. Some of the madrasas don't have that setup, but we do try and encourage the mosques to teach civic duties within their systems. I remember in the mosque that I represented in Leighton, we actually, at the time, this is before in 2014 in Gaza, they wrote the school masjid, actually, part of the lessons, they were doing Quran studies, but they took a day out. They all wrote their letters, how they felt to the MP, John Cryer, at that time. As you know, he's still the MP now. They wrote a letter saying, do something about the children being killed in Gaza. And he actually came to the mosque. So and we said, you should encourage the civic engagement. They need to know there's a political process they follow. This is all part of justice. And our words, like the Ustad Hamid mentioned, speaking the word against an unjust ruler is the greatest jihad, the greatest form of struggle. So teaching that through the madrasa system is definitely something that needs to be done. And obviously the madrasas might need help, but we can help. There's many organizations like MEND, for example, that can help madrasas implement this in a light touch way, once a week, once a month, an assembly. You get people used to understanding how they have to voice their concerns, their feelings in a democratic way. So this has to be pushed. But we must remember, because there are some people within the Muslim world who say we are apolitical, literally within and again, not mentioning any Jamaats, but they say they stay away from it. But we know the Prophet ﷺ was a statesman as well as the spiritual leader, as well as the one that was the master on the battlefield. All areas that encompass Islam. And we need to remind ourselves that this is part and parcel of our religion, our deen, and we should embrace it holistically.
Okay, so that's another really powerful and important message for the viewers. Hamid, just back to you. Hundreds of British citizens are taking part in military action in Gaza, wearing the Israeli military badge, the IDF badge. Do you think they need to be referred to the Prevent programme as well?
Absolutely. I feel they're a threat to society here. They've been killing innocent people, abroad, bombing children, innocent men and women, and they're going to come back here and they're going to so-called integrate in our society. We have dangerous people coming back. So I'm afraid just like if someone was to go to a Muslim country and do the same, just as the government would react, they should react equally on par here with how with how they reacted to Muslims coming back.
Yeah.
So they need to ensure that they take the steps that are there enshrined in law. These people have blood on their hands, and they need to be referred to whatever agency that deals with this. So definitely 100%. I mean, it's impossible for them to come back. They're a threat to society.
Irfan, they're a threat to society. They've got blood on their hands. So says Hamid Mahmud about Brits serving in the IDF. What's your message to people like Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, people like Keir Starmer, the opposition leader, people like Stella Creasy, who's the Labour MP in your constituency, people like John Cryer, who's the Labour MP in your constituency, people like Ian Duncan-Smith, who is a Conservative MP in your constituency? What do you say to them about where Prevent should be actually targeting?
They need to be consistent. And this is the biggest problem. We have double standards all the time. Muslims had their citizenship revoked, losing their citizenship if they were in Syria. And we've had these cases, a local guy from Walthamstow who had his citizenship taken away.
Yeah.
He wasn't fighting. He went for charity purposes. But people who are literally IDF, where war crimes are being committed, and these are clear war crimes. We're having these words. Ben Wallace, former Defence Secretary, mentioned killing rage.
Yeah.
Alicia Kearns recently believes international law has been broken by Israel. We're getting stronger voices from even the Conservative Party now, but it's clear war crimes. The UN are very clear. They didn't invoke Article 99 for no reason, a rare article. They know the situation is dire, beyond reproach now, and Israel are acting like a rogue state, a pariah state, literally not listening to any rules. So these things need to be addressed, and people need to be consistent in their approach.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Hamid, many thanks for joining me. I found your interactions and your contributions to be highly valuable, and hopefully we'll have you on again at some point as well. Thanks to both our guests and also our guest at the top of the show, Dr. Layla Al-Hajj, from the director of Prevent Watch. Folks, it's worrying times, but do not be afraid. Get in touch with the media. Let us know if